Hi friends, welcome to Lawyer Up. Today we're talking about the U.S. Supreme Court case involving the receipt date on the mail ballots in the state of Wisconsin. As most people have heard in the news, Wisconsin is one of the few states that is critical to this election 2020. So last Monday, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled 5-3 to require mail ballots in the key battleground state of Wisconsin to be received by the time the polls actually close on election day. Now, this is a decision that hints at how the 9-justice court may approach disputes over the November 3rd presidential election. How fitting that last Monday was also the same day that Justice Amy Barrett was sworn in. So she'll have a couple more cases similar to this involving Pennsylvania and probably North Carolina in terms of the receipt date of these ballots. So she'll get her own chance. But now to this case. Justice Brett Kavanaugh indicated that he believes that votes that arrive after election day should not be counted even if they were sent before. And he wrote that a result ought to be delivered on election night or as soon as possible thereafter. Now that's controversial because more than half of all voters have voted by mail already, especially in this time period of the pandemic. And the counting of those votes could last for days after election night has ended. Now there's a whole new situation because of the pandemic, and that's why several states have allowed for universal registration of mail-in ballot. Texas was not one of those states. That's where I reside. We still had to actually apply just to receive a mail-in ballot. So that took some time. I tested it out and it took about a week to receive the mail-in ballot, but I was not eligible to actually vote by mail-in ballot. But anyway, it's no wonder why there's that saying that people think that their vote does not count. And especially from the 2016 election where Hillary Clinton got about, I believe it was a little over 2 million votes over Trump, and she still lost. So that's why we'll have another episode about the electoral process, the electoral college, because most people still don't know about it even after the 2016 election. Now I want to be clear, there is no law to my knowledge that says that votes have to be counted by a certain deadline. However, it does say that all votes have to be counted. Now, as for this Wisconsin case, it revolves around exactly when the cutoff date is, or the time for Wisconsin officials to set the mail-in ballot that are postmarked by election day, but arrive several days after. If you may be thinking that the state is the one that is allowed to create these rules, I'd have to agree with that, and that's actually what some of these justices agree with as well. However, what they don't agree with is that they think they should be able to change the rules when people have already relied on the current rules. I can completely understand if the Supreme Court wants to be able to change the rules for the following elections. But again, this is in a time period where we're dealing with a pandemic that who knows how much better it could have been if there was a more prompt response by the federal leadership. But this is what we're dealing with now. Now there's a major flashback on this decision because Justice Kavanaugh's concurrence opinion has alarmed Democrats and voting rights advocates for several reasons. Mostly because he actually worked as an attorney for President George W. Bush when in the 2000 election, when there was, of course, the dispute about the hanging chads in the state of Florida. And he cited to Chief Justice Rehnquist's controversial concurrence in that Bush v. Gore case where it advanced an opinion or advanced a theory that state courts should have very limited ability to change state laws around elections. The ruling in that case also handed the disputed election, of course, to President George W. Bush, even though not all the votes had been counted. So Justice Kavanaugh took aim at the entire concept of counting mail-in ballots that are postmarked by election day but arrive later, which, by the way, 18 states and the District of Columbia currently allow. He also wrote that states that require ballots to be received by Election Day, quote, avoid the chaos and suspicions of impropriety that can ensue if thousands of absentee ballots flow in after Election Day and potentially flip the results of the election, end quote. Now let's think about this for a second. He's saying that it would potentially flip the results. If the ballots haven't been fully counted yet, there are no results. And that's exactly what Justice Kagan had stated in her dissenting opinion. Justice Kavanaugh wrote that the counting ought to end quickly and rather than only after all potential votes had been counted. Now, I completely understand the situation if there is voter fraud. That's a legitimate argument, even though there's really little to no evidence about it. Now, Republicans are taking aim at mail-in ballots in all sorts of ways that are voting. For example, in Texas, GOP filed a lawsuit against Harris County, stating that the drive-through voting should not be counted at all. But the Texas Supreme Court yesterday had actually stated that those votes can still count. Now, that was a Texas Supreme Court that made that ruling, right? Well, Justice Gorsuch, in his opinion, stated that the state legislature is the one who has the authority to make the final decision on how votes should be counted. So that brings up an argument that, for example, in Wisconsin, the state legislature there can basically try to retroactively reverse what the Supreme Court of Wisconsin had rendered rulings. But neither Justice Gorsuch or Justice Roberts had gone as far as Justice Kavanaugh in their opinions, and thankfully no other justice signed on to Justice Kavanaugh's opinion. Justice Gorsuch and Roberts agreed that the district court acted improperly for a federal court to change a law set by a state legislature. Now, there are still two other high-profile cases that are related to the same issue about the mail-in ballot receipt deadlines before the Supreme Court, and they include a case in Pennsylvania where the Republicans there are asking the court to reverse the extension of the deadline from November 3rd to Friday, November 6th, and also a case filed by North Carolina Republicans asking the U.S. Supreme Court to strike down North Carolina's extended deadline for ballots to be received. Now, in the state of North Carolina, the North Carolina Alliance for Retired Americans and several other voters have filed a lawsuit in state court to challenge the state's rule that mail-in ballots be received within 3 days of election. So that would be November 6th. And ultimately, the challengers, the petitioners in that lawsuit, in the State Board of Elections entered into a consent agreement to extend the deadline by 6 days, actually, to November 12th. And the state court approved that agreement in early October. However, the Trump campaign and the RNC actually are trying to stop the implementation of this consent agreement. And by a vote of 12-3, the Court of Appeals in the Fourth Circuit actually denied their request. And so that still left the 9-day extension in place to November 12th. Now, and so they've appealed that decision, of course, and now that's going up to the U.S. Supreme Court. So this is an opportunity for the new Justice Amy Coney Barrett to essentially reveal what she's thinking on this. I can say that most people are assuming that we all know that she is a conservative justice. That's not the issue. The issue now is how she can craft her argument, her opinion. The interest now is trying to figure out how she's going to craft her opinion to say that if ballots can be received by election day and maybe have to be counted by election night, let's say 11 p.m. I'm sure many people, including myself, are interested to see how she will write her opinion, because we're all excited to see who's going to be president in 2021. Hi everyone, if this is your first time on this podcast, please hit subscribe so you can receive the notifications of our future episodes. If you are a regular listener, we really appreciate you taking a time out, please write a 4-star review for us. We greatly appreciate it. And we'll talk to you soon. I'm sure we'll be sharing more information about this case in North Carolina and also about Pennsylvania. Until then, have a great election day.